I got my start 7 years ago, where this human fly idea entered my mind when I was in a hospital. This is what I'm dedicating my career to, professing to be the greatest daredevil in the world over the next period of 5-6 years. I plan to exhibit the greatest stunts, or the greatest feats, if that's the word you want to use, ever deemed imaginable.
The popular culture of 1976 was dominated by Disco, the $6 Million Man, and the Stuntman, Evel Knievel. Out of this strange social environment emerged the Human Fly, a Canadian stuntman with a tragic yet relatable past. He claimed to have survived a car accident that killed his wife and daughter. Over a period of 4 years, and after 38 operations that replaced 60% of his body with steel, he arose from his hospital bed and dedicated his life to putting himself in dangerous situations that threatened his life. From that point forward, the Human Fly would only be seen in public wearing the costume and mask that would become his persona. The pimp cane was an interesting addition to his wardrobe. Early on, he made various television appearances to increase his public profile. Apparently, the Human Fly was not only featured on That's Incredible, but he also had an appearance in the Beach Boys TV movie It's Okay, alongside Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. Of course, he is possibly best known for the 19-issue comic book series published by Marvel Comics. Ironically, the comic book lasted longer than the actual career of the Human Fly. In interviews, former Marvel Comics editor-in-chief, Jim Shooter, has said the comic only exists because of the licensing deal with the Human Fly's management. It was not a concept that was supported by Marvel's creative staff, but it was one they had to move forward with once a deal was made. The lack of creative or editorial support is rather apparent in the final product. It's safe to say the barest amount of effort went into producing the comic book. The comic book stories all follow a pretty basic formula. The Human Fly would perform an elaborate stunt to raise money for some charity. This was part of the Human Fly's brand, so to speak. The stunts he performed were to raise awareness for those that were young and disabled. He then performs the stunt, something goes a bit wrong, and the Human Fly overcomes this unforeseen challenge with the power of his superior wits and reflexes. There is a supporting cast, all of which are in some state of mild awe whenever the Human Fly is around. And there's a snoopy reporter who follows the Human Fly from stunt to stunt. Her only mission is to expose him as a fraud and to discover his real identity. In real life, the Human Fly had a sidekick, even though he wasn't part of the comic book. This was a man called Mercury. Mercury himself had very few appearances. He shows up in the promotional video, The Human Fly Challenges the Skies of Mojave, and in photographs taken at the Marvel Comics office. Otherwise, Mercury, who clearly looks embarrassed wearing his gaudy costume, exists deep in the background of the Human Fly's history. Overall, the 19-issue series is pretty terrible. Critically speaking, it's not the worst thing ever, but it does seem to be a series that merely exists to cash in on the non-existent popularity of a stuntman that never achieved any form of success. And when the career of the actual Human Fly was over, the series limped onward, possibly to retain the publishing rights to the character, just in case he re-emerged and became a star.
What are you going to do?
Well, I can't announce the next one, but I can announce further ones down the road. We are having a boat built for us, which is, we hope to break the world speed record on a boat. But we're not only breaking the speed record in the boat, but I'm also going to do it across the Bermuda Triangle. My missile jump, which will be approximately next year sometime, where I'm going to be jumping strapped on the outside of a rocket from France to England, 22 miles across the English Channel.
Is this serious now? Are you really going to do that?
If I...
Seriously honest.
Is the CN Tower involved in any way?
Oh, that's
long term.
That's the last one.
What? You're going to jump off the CN Tower?
Well, none of my people want me to, but it was in my original plans that stemmed from 7 years ago. I planned to take a dive off the 1,535-foot level into a 20-foot tank of water.
As for the actual career of the Human Fly, he performed exactly 2 different stunts. The first stunt was riding on the back of a DC-8. During the first attempt, he was pelted by rain that hit him at 250 miles per hour. He was knocked unconscious from the pain and was treated at a hospital. His next attempt at the same stunt was more successful, and he only sustained windburn to his legs. The second stunt was an attempt to jump 26 buses in order to beat Evel Knievel's established record. The event was scheduled for the summer of 1977, and it took place during a Gloria Gaynor concert at Montreal's Olympic Stadium. In the few photographs and the video footage that exists, one can see the stadium is practically empty. As for the stunt, the human fly did beat the record, but he missed the landing. He crashed onto the top of the lined-up buses and slid into the ramp he intended to land on. He survived, broken and battered, and he never appeared in public again.
Beautiful day, and I'm going to prove to the world that I am the greatest superhero that ever lived and will ever live.
The human fly was a completely fabricated personality, created by the brothers Joe and Dominic Ramacchiari. Bored with making sausage at the family business, they put together $200,000, hired the self-professed stuntman Rick Rojat, and planned to capitalize on as many popular trends as they could manage. They blended disco fashion with stunt performing and threw in a little science fiction cyborg type of stuff for good measure. What may be possible, but it might also be unsubstantiated rumor, is that Marvel Comics helped flesh out the human fly's backstory once they acquired the publishing rights to the comic. According to the rumor, the human fly provided Marvel with some talking points, then Marvel gave those details a structure and made the alleged origin story more cohesive. More to the point, the human fly appears to have incorporated these more structured details about his life in interviews following the Marvel deal. But again, this may be rumor and speculation. There may have been multiple people portraying the human fly, especially during public appearances and interviews, although it's believed Rick Rojat was the only stuntman. This approach adhered to the concept that the person portraying the human fly was disposable and easily replaceable, since there was no face to attach to the personality. Disposing of the person in the human fly suit must have occurred to the Ramacchiari brothers when they started having doubts about Rick Rojat. The claims he made and his overall reliability was suspect. The brothers must have known they were, in principle, pulling a very public, mostly harmless con, but they may have also been concerned that they had hired an actual con man to portray their hero. For example, there was no record of Rojat ever working as a professional stuntman, even though he claimed he had. Rojat also claimed he had actually endured the tragic car accident and recovery process that became part of the human fly legend. Again, no record of such events exist. So either Rojat was potentially delusional or pathological, or he was the victim of terrible record keeping. Perhaps the worst thing Rojat did was admit to a reporter that he was the human fly. This destroyed the anonymous nature of the persona. It was also a cunning way for Rojat to obtain some job security. If he was known to be the human fly, then he would be irreplaceable. This is all speculation. Following the failed bus jump, both the human fly and Rick Rojat, the man who claimed to be the stuntman, disappeared. Some reporters have attempted to track him down, but he remains elusive. An odd footnote to an already odd story is the attempt to revive the human fly as a musician. This was a plot beat that was actually presented in the comic book. Circa 1980, the guitarist David Wolf put on the costume and performed as the human fly with the backing band Red Rider. It's unknown if this was just one performance or multiple performances. Cyndi Lauper, who was managed by Wolf and who was also his partner at the time, claims he was the human fly on multiple occasions. Regardless, it was a direction that completely failed. Technically, this was the final time anyone officially appeared in public as the human fly. In the end, the lack of a competent, reliable stuntman and the overall expense of renting venues and buying equipment must have depleted the initial investment the brothers had raised. The lack of money, the public disinterest in the human fly, and the failure of the jump must have contributed to the decision to discontinue any further human fly stunts. The human fly is now an obscure footnote in Canadian history. At best, one could claim he was a performance artist, dabbling in dangerous feats of endurance and willpower. It's probably more accurate to say the human fly embodied an enthusiastic but misguided business plan, one that invested in a gaudy, possibly delusional dream. Ultimately, the dream couldn't withstand scrutiny or survive in the cold, harsh reality of the Canadian climate. This video is brought to you courtesy of these very fine people. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to click the subscribe button and support Overlord Comics. If you'd like to go a step further, click the join button and choose the option most suitable for you.